material I teach, so pay attention. Also, there is a quiz Friday that I'll talk more about that is on this kind of stuff right here, not the new material. This is old material. Yana?
So I was just wondering, like, in general, for the first section, isn't it if we write the points, for example, like in parentheses, 0,
No, that's not what's being asked. So thank you so much for saying that. Like, let's look at number 1A. If you're asked for G of 10, I've already given you the X. It's like saying, Jillian, what's your last name? There's no reason for Jillian to say Jillian. Now all of a sudden I have no idea what your last name is. What is your last name? See how she answered that? She just gave me her Y value. Do you see first name, last name? Yana's question is excellent, okay? You got to get, and today we'll get really used to the notation, Yana, so you really kind of fed right into one of the things I wanted to do today. Everybody close your computers right now. There's absolutely no reason to have them open, and do not open them until I tell you to. My Algebra 2A class last year was famous for closing their computer, and 3 minutes later I would see them open again. I mean, close them until I tell you to open them again. Okay, this is super important, and you need to learn this from me because everybody expects you to know it from now on. I already know the X is 10, so I'm asking for the answer, which is the Y value. I know 10 is the first name. I'm looking for the last name. So I go to function G, and I fill it in, and if you did it right, you got negative 29, and that's how you write it. So what you're telling me, Yana, and everybody else, her question is should write it as 10 comma negative 29, not based on how the question was answered. It's like I walked up to somebody that I've never met and say, what's your name? If I've never met somebody, I usually introduce myself as Becky Lazeri, okay? But if somebody goes, Becky, I forgot your last name, I just say Lazeri. They already know my first name, okay? So this is a way, girls, big deal. This is a way for me to say, go to function G, fill in 10, and tell me what your answer is. Y'all see what I mean? It's short, succinct. Math is a very efficient language. Just think of what I can do if I want to say, what happens if you add together 3 and 2? All I have to go is 3 plus 2, and you know what I'm asking you to do, right? Well, if I say, I wonder what 16 divided by 3 is, all you've got to do is, all I've got to say to you is a language, 16 divided by 3. And it's always a big deal to get this done in Algebra 2. All right, to just make sure everybody's on board with the notation. So I already knew the X, I'm not asking for it. Now, if I said, write your answer right at a point, then you would, but not unless someone asks. So I could say, Jillian, what's your last name? I already forgot it again. What is it?
Atienza.
How do I pronounce it? Start so.
Atienza.
Atienza? Atienza. Okay. But if I'm mispronouncing her first name, which I hope I'm not, then she could then say, I could say, oh, well, tell me your entire name, just so I got it right. Then I'm asking another question. Okay? So like Victoire, we talked about the other day how people mispronounce your name quite often, and you just sort of let it go sometimes. But if I said what we were talking about, if I said, Victoria, what's your last name? You'd probably answer them based on your personality. But if they're like, do I have your name right? What's your entire name? Then you would tell me first and last.
Yes.
This person already knows your first name, G of 10. Okay? All right, B. The only thing you would write down for F of 3, you would just say equals 16. I'm doing these in my head, so correct me if I'm wrong. Did most of y'all have 16?
Not 13. And for the first one.
Oh, do I have a different sheet?
Yeah.
You know what sheet I'm doing? I'm doing the one from 2 times ago with the L's.
Yeah, we did all of number 1 last time.
Okay, so number 1, F of 0, and we did this. Okay, so now,
We did 2 and the rest of the
all right, are y'all okay with that?
Yeah.
All right, so that's how you answer. Now, are we ready to go to the second page? All right, so Bailey, do you have all of 1?
Oh, we didn't have to do it. Yeah.
No, we didn't.
No, you could eliminate H and I. Hey, wait, stay on the first page for a second. Does anybody have any idea how to answer I on number 1? I on number 1. Do you have any idea what kind of equation would look like that? We'll study them a lot this year.
I'm not sure, would it be like a quadratic?
It would be quadratic. What she means by that is it would be like an x squared graph. If Yana squares something, watch my fingers, watch my hands, okay? 0 squared is my nose, 0. What is 1 squared? Am I going, this is 1 to y'all this way, right? 1 squared is 1. What is negative 1 squared? 1, okay? So what happens if we square something, we start at 0, 0, but then does it matter if you square a positive or a negative? Do you see how it starts to like reproduce itself like this, and it makes that U-shaped graph? We'll study them big time. You don't have to know that right now, though, in case you're wondering what you have to know. Okay, that's good. All right, so I'm going to number 2 because I just don't know where we are in all of this. So are we all okay on number 1? That's all I care about right now.
Yeah.
All right, going to number 2. Number 2 is all about function h. H is this function. That tells me to go to h and find out what's going on at 0, and I got 3. B, h of negative 3, I got 0. C is one that people have trouble with sometimes. But what do I know here? Do I know the x or the y, Ella?
We know that
On C?
The
C?
Y.
We know the y, and we're looking for the x. So all of a sudden you're looking on a graph like this and want to know when my y value is 3. That's what I'm looking for. It looks like to me my y value is 3 at the very tippy top. Do y'all see that's when my y value is 3? So now you're looking for your y value and you look down here, okay? And so I'm asking for the first name really. How far, I think it's 0.
Yeah.
So you would say x is 0. Ella?
Also, not letter A is the same thing.
It is. It's the same thing. One of them's asking for the y, one of them's asking for the x. This scenario would be like a whole lot of your teachers, you know their first name, their last name, but you might not know their first name, or some of your parents' friends or whatever. So this is like, oh, you know, what's Miss Smith's first name? So you're going, I already know it's Smith, I already know the output, I want the input, okay? All right, approximate h of 2, so we're on D, h of 2. All right, h of 2. Now, which one are you given? Are you given the x or the y here? The x. So I'm going to go out 2, and I'm going to go up, and I'm going to approximate it. And I thought it was about 2.3.
So I got 2.6.
That's fine. All of that, it's approximated. I just want to see if you could find it. It's between 2 and 3. Are y'all okay with that? All right, what do you think about D? Is it a function?
Yes.
All right, it passes the vertical line test. It's not a very good vertical line, but anyway, it is a function. Let's pause for a minute before we turn. We're doing domain and range today, by the way, but we're skipping it for now, okay? Go to the second page, but I want to talk about this right here. Every single person in this room has a different first name. That makes this function very easy. There's nothing wrong if there's 2 people quite often named Ella in the room. That's not wrong. It just makes it harder for me you to know who I'm talking to. I'd have to find some way around it, okay? To where I call you Ella D or something like that. I think we already talked about this when I started talking about functions that graduated last year. There were 2 Sarah Sullivans in the senior class. So that was you couldn't just go Sarah, you couldn't just go Sarah Sullivan, so one of them was Sarah B. Sullivan. But you see how it's not wrong, it just didn't function very well if you have the same first name. I don't know if I told you this, but there's a famous boxer, fighter, George Foreman. And did we talk about this already? He's got 8 kids, and they're all named George.
Why?
I think the girls are named Georgina or Georgette.
Are you serious?
Yes. But talk about, isn't that confusing? That's confusing. I have enough trouble with my sons Nathan and Clayton don't even have the same name. And
That's my mother. My mother
your
has-
parents probably call you every name in the book before they
Yes.
including the pets, right?
Yeah.
Well, my grandparents.
Nah, my cousin has it bad. She has 2 pets, so her mother used to be calling her pets name.
Yeah.
Max.
Yes. I mean, just I'm like, how did you mess up? Like, she be calling people whose kids are not even in the house. Like her son is away, like he's like working, like
He's not even
and
there.
she still calls his name. I'm like, that's a left ear complaint.
All right, girls, this is supposed to be a vertical line. I guess I should have fixed it by now. It's kind of slanted. But the point is, watch this. Shh. All right. When I tell stories, we got to get off the stories and move on when I'm ready because I'm in charge. Do you see how when it's hitting this blue dot, it's not hitting any other blue dots. That means everybody in this room has a different first name, so we function very easily together. If it's not a function, we can still deal with it, but we got to be on our toes, if you know what that means. We got to be on our guard. We got to watch out for problems. We'll worry about that later. All right, 3. Second page. You can go to the second page now. All right, 3A. F of 0 is -2. B, f of -1 is -5. C, and Yana, like we said, we're just answering the things. All right, the next one says f of x equals 4. People have come to me a lot in the Math Center, thank goodness, that people are coming by, and Ella could testify. I think, well, it kind of didn't happen to you the other day, but another math teacher answered the questions, I think. Jillian, did you come in?
Oh yeah, I rolled that one.
And who helped? Mr. Hill?
It was
Miss OD.
Miss OD. Okay, so case in point, if I'm not there, another math teacher will jump in and help you a lot. And it's sometimes better to hear it from a different person anyway. All right, f of x equals 4. I go and find f of x, which is, it told me f of x is 3x minus 2. Now, what does this person asking the question already know? Do they know the x, or do they already know your answer? Yana?
They already know the y.
They already know the y value. So they already know that you're going to say 3x minus 2 and you're going to get 4, but you see they don't know your first name yet? When you have these, I've given you the y or the answer, and you're supposed to find x. Another thing I did was somebody that came by the Math Center, I can't remember who it was, somebody in here, okay? Did y'all see this? F of x,
Yep.
okay? Did y'all see that?
Yep.
So, what did I tell you f of x equals?
4.
4. So when you see that f of x, what can you put in its place?
4.
4. I told you what f of x equals. That means the answer to the problem is 4.
Yes.
And then you solve for x, and we'll find out how good you are at solving for a variable. But I added 2 and got 6, and then divided, and I got x equals 2. Good. So we both got that. All right, letter D, you were told f of x is equal to 1. It's just positive 1, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, so how do you know which function to go to? Go to this one, 3x minus 2. And instead of f of x, what can you put in? 1, and then you solve it. I think x also ends up being 1 on this one. X equals 1? All right, E, f of x equals 0 at 2/3. Anybody get that?
Yeah.
All right, so you have 3x minus 2. If I said f of x equals 0, that means I already have the answer. I'm looking for the input. I already have the output. So I would add 2. 2 is equal to 3x, and then divide by 3, and x is 2/3. F, it switched equations on you. Do you see what a beautiful language it is? I don't have to say, go to 1/2 x squared and fill in 4. I say that all with a nice, neat little notation. All right, so if you're looking for g of 4, that means I'm going to go, watch this, girls. You know how I always am drawing parentheses. Everywhere there's an x.
Yeah.
And into that parentheses, I've got my first name 4. And I get half of 16, which is 8. Are y'all okay on F?
Yes.
All right, on G, G of -1. Oh, I'm going to do that one. On G, G of -1. of 1/2 parentheses squared. Please do that. I do that. I told you that the other day. Soon you're going to have a lot of x's in there, and you need to put parentheses everywhere there's an x and put in the number. This number goes right in here. What is -1 squared if it's in parentheses? It's 1, isn't it, Evelyn? So you just get 1/2 times 1, so the answer is 1/2. Parentheses are necessary.
Wait, which number is that?
That was G,
Letter G.
letter G. And now I'm on letter H. Look at H. G of x is 50. Okay? They already have the answer. I'm going to go to G of x, which is 1/2 x squared. And what am I going to set it equal to? 50? All right, because they told you the answer.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, now, sorry, this is not moving. What's it doing? Oh, there we go. All right. Now, to solve this, how do you get rid of a 1/2? Sarah?
You would divide it.
You could divide by 1/2 is one option. It's a little bit ugly, but it works, and you probably got the right answer. But what's a quicker way to get rid of 1/2? Oh, do you know?
I think it's the same thing. X
Okay.
multiplied by 2.
Yeah, it is the same thing, but it's a little bit easier. Y'all learn this, girls. You're used to dividing by 1/2, that's fine, but then I'm going to have a 1/2 under here,
Yeah.
which is okay because then you multiply by the reciprocal. But let me show you something that'll speed you along, again, while we're sitting here in Algebra 2, all right? Because you know algebra, but we got to get it really strong. If one of my calculus girls walked in here right now, you would go, what's the thing you got to watch out for the most for in calculus? They would go, our algebra, okay? It's really easy to get rid of a 1/2 with a 2. Technically, isn't that 2 over 1? All right, that cancels out. And on this side, I have x squared. And on the other side, I have 100. Hang on just a second, Sarah. I may be kind of still in your thunder just a minute. So what I'm saying is in the future, if you have 3/5 x equals 7, it's going to be really ugly to divide both sides by 3/5. It works, okay? But you could just multiply by what? The reciprocal, okay? Which you end up doing anyway, is what Sarah did. I'm going to multiply by 5/3, and if I do it to one side, don't I have to do it to the other side? So we'll kind of practice this stuff in the future, and I just encourage you to try something easier, okay? To finish this off, this would be 35/3. All right, Sarah, comment?
Oh, I was just gonna do the next step.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. It's going to be interesting. Everybody check your answer on this one. Once again, we're on the last one on the second. Are we on the second page? Last one on the second page, okay? What did you think your answer was there, Sarah?
Well, I nested it as square and moved it.
Okay.
I realized that it's also -10.
Right. There's a big issue here that I'm not going to super get into now because it's really hard for, even when I get into it with honors pre-cal, they're like, what? That's very surprising, okay? The square root of x squared is not really x. It's really the absolute value of x, okay? So let me ask you this question. I'm going to get into it a little bit with you. I'll just do it up here. And many times Algebra 2 teachers won't broach this topic and then you stay confused. And I'm just not going to happen to you. I'm going to go ahead and kind of dive in deep to this topic. You don't have to fully understand it right now, but at least you'll know why. All of a sudden students get real confused when you're supposed to say plus or minus. Okay? And I don't want you to be confused, but I have to do this with students year after year after year in my upper level classes because I'm even their Algebra 2 teacher sometimes. I was the person that showed it to them, and if something happens just the first time you see it, you don't really grasp it. But it's really good to see on a calculator. Oh, okay. Well, I'll do it on Desmos. All right, so going to Desmos. All right, does anybody know what the absolute value of x looks like? What does it look like, Gabby?
Is it just X with 2 lines?
Oh, I mean the graph of it, yes. That's what the equation would look like. They might know what the graph looks like, Daniela.
Is it a V?
It's a V shape. Absolute value doesn't always make a V, but the absolute value of X does, okay? If the square root of X, and here's where I am with this. This is what unfortunately can happen to you on test day that I don't want to happen. Sarah had the foresight to not let it happen to her, all right? But if you're just working it with your calculator and you go square root and you say this is X, your calculator is going to only give you 10. But if you look at the question, it's not really fair for you just to say 10. That's like if you said, tell me about your children, and I went on and 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 on about Nathan. After a while, you go, doesn't she have 2 sons? I'm like, yeah, whatever. You know, what about, I can't remember his name. Obviously, I'm being facetious, okay? But y'all see what I mean? I think we talked about it a little bit the other day, but it wouldn't be fair for me not to also say my other son's name is Clayton and go on and on and on and on about him, okay? So if I asked you what you can square, if I asked you what you can square to get 100, there's 2 equally correct answers, okay? In fact, to push you a little further, because y'all are doing so well, do you remember what we were talking about with Yana, x squared? Did y'all see that? This is 100 way up here. There's an answer here. Isn't there also an answer there? So there are 10 and what, Sarah? Negative 10. You on a test have to give me both, okay? What you'll see your teachers do sometimes though is this. In fact, most people are going to do this and it can confuse you a lot. And there's a reason why they do it. It's because it keeps you moving. But I'm just going to show you why. Okay, so what if I had 3x squared minus 4 equals, I want to make up one that's going to have a perfect square so that we can work it out. Let's see. Okay, what would you do first to find x? Gabby?
I'd probably move the 15 to the other
Move the 15 to the other side? Is that what you're going to say, Daniela?
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to add 15. Some people do it in their head, which is fine at this level.
Wait, I have a question.
Okay,
Never mind.
are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. What would you do next?
Do it 3, like,
You would divide by 3? Okay, but now I'm seeing I didn't make up what I wanted. I can't add in my head, apparently. I'm going to change this 15 to a 13. Sorry about that, girls. When I try to go backwards. Okay, so Gabby, we're going to add 13 to both sides. And that'll make the other side what? If you add 13, you'll get 27, and then Claire will divide by 3, right?
yeah.
Then your teachers will do this. That may have already happened to you. Have they ever square rooted both sides?
Yeah.
Have you seen this? Okay. You'll see it in the future if you haven't seen it so far. And then all of a sudden they'll say x is equal to plus or minus 3. Okay? Here's what's wrong with it. It's the square root of 9 is just 3. The square root of 9 is not negative 3. What's the answer to this? 8. What's the answer to this? 2. 5 minus 3? Okay, thanks for raising your hand. Okay, so you must really believe that what I'm saying is true. Square root of 9 is 3, isn't it? If I want it to be negative, I could do this in front of it. But it can be real confusing, so confusing, is that all of a sudden people don't know what to do when they get like square root of 25. They're like, I don't know if you want 5 or plus or minus 5. The square root of 25 is just 5, okay? If I wanted it to be negative, I would have had to put it there. So when you see your teachers do this, they are correct. It's just they're not telling you about a missing step in here. So just kind of remember this as you go forward. It'll help you understand when you need to do something. The square root of 9 is not plus or minus 3. The square root of x squared is not x, and yet your teachers will write down that answer. That is the right answer. But there's a secret missing step in there that most people won't talk about because it's hard to understand. I want to make it as clear as I can. You'll be thankful later, okay? Right now, you don't have to write anything down. But please actively watch, okay? Don't take notes here. Like really, you've got the freedom just to watch me. All right, who said the V? Was that you, Daniela?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's y equals x. Y'all okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. Victoria's okay with that. Are y'all y equals x? All right, here is y is equal to, Gabby, what you referred to with the bars, the absolute value of x. And Daniela had that right, okay? So if the square root of x squared, I'm going to wait until I type it in. I'm just about to hit squared. If a square root of x squared is just x, you'll see that first line I put up on the board, won't you?
Correct.
What's the square root of x squared? It's the absolute value of x. For bonus points, does anybody know why? Why are these the same thing? I'll do this sometimes in class, by the way. If you get it right, I'll just open up my grade book and give you a couple of bonus points. Hang on. They are the same. Are y'all okay with that as I turn this off and on? Okay. Danielle, I think I saw your name. Your hand up first. Okay, why are those the same thing?
Well, I think they're the same because the square root of x to the second is x.
It's not though. Because if it was, when I typed this in, I would have seen x. I wouldn't have seen absolute value of x. The square root of x squared is not x. Teachers write that, but that's not what it is. I can see that's not what it is. Gabby, I think you were next. Maybe not.
Well, the absolute value of a number, whether negative or positive, is the positive version of the number.
Right.
And so,
Except for it's 0, but yeah.
yeah. So if you put if you did the square root of 3 squared, the same thing
Mhm.
happen?
Yes.
So if you do -3 or 3, it
Watch
wouldn't
what,
matter.
yeah, give you bonus points, don't let me forget. Look at this. If Gabby puts in 3 and squares it, she'll get 9. What happens if she puts in -3 in parentheses and squares it? She gets the same result, doesn't she? It doesn't matter if she goes this way or this way, does it?
No.
What's the answer to a square root? Unless it's got something in front of it, isn't it always positive?
Yes.
Is that graph always positive?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to kind of leave it there for now. We'll revisit it. But do y'all all look at the board? Look at the board. Do y'all all see that I typed in the square root of x squared and I did not get x? I got the what of x? So look at this. Here's the missing secret step that hardly anybody writes down. I think it'll help you in the future. Let's really work the problem correctly. What will you all know the square root of x squared is the absolute value of x. The square root of 9 is 3 because it doesn't have a negative in front of it. The square root of 9 is just 3. Square root of 25 is just 5. If I wanted it to be negative, I'd put a negative in front of the square root. However, this is how they get the right answer. What could you put in there to make that true?
-3.
How many numbers could you put in for x to get that answer?
2.
What would they be? When 3 and -3 were? All right, so that everybody's with me, what 2 numbers could you put in here to make this true? Would it be only 5?
No.
I could also put in -5. All right, so what are you going to do in the future when you encounter x squares? Let's go back to this place where I think Claire said let's divide by 3. you get x squared equals 9. When you square root both sides, you don't have to write down that absolute value of x for your other teachers or for me, but just know it's there, okay?
Yes.
What's happening is this side, as Gabby said, could be a positive or a negative, and it wouldn't matter. So I'm going to say x is plus or minus 3. Where it gets confusing, though, is how you get from this answer to that answer. We'll work on it a lot more. I just wanted to throw that out there, okay? Now, we're about to regroup and go back to the worksheets, but hang on just a second. Yana?
Well, it wouldn't be that confusing, right? Because isn't it just you know that the x can be either positive or negative, so that's why it's a plus or minus.
I'll tell you where it gets confusing. Once teachers write this down, and hopefully me telling you where it gets confusing will make it not confusing for you. Once teachers write this down after they've written this, then all of a sudden when someone really gets an answer like this, if I say f of x is equal to the square root of x, and I ask you for f of 25, square root of 25, and I just get 5. And students are right, wait a minute, you've been square rooting, saying plus or minus. Do you see where you can get confused? Because your very teacher is doing this plus or minus thing. It all depends on the question, okay? My question here is really, what do you square to get 9? So here, you don't say plus or minus. The answer to that is flat out 5. There are no alternatives, that's it. The square root of 25 is just plain 5. So if I give it to you already in the square root, it can only be 5. If it's given to you like this, it's already squared, it can be 2 answers. But once a teacher writes this down, which you'll see it for the next 4 years, my best students get confused about it. They're like, I don't know when I'm supposed to say plus or minus, because nobody ever explained it to you while I'm all of a sudden doing that. I doubt you totally understand why I'm doing it anyway, but at least that gives you a little glimpse into why. Okay? Me having said that means I do this a lot when I kind of fast forward into the future with all of my classes. You weren't supposed to understand that. You were just supposed to watch it. I tell my students this all the time. If that's a fuzzy concept, then you're in the right place. It'll firm up over time. The first time I heard or saw something like that, I was just like, I was probably wasn't even paying attention by the end. Okay, I'm just like, I don't know what you're doing. But we'll talk about it again. By the time you leave this class, you'll have a better handle on all of that. So let's sum it up. These are very similar questions, aren't they? What's the answer to the bottom? 4. What can you square to get 16? 4 and negative 4. What's the answer to this one? 4. The answer to that one, I've said I want the square root of 16 is just 4.
So
Okay.
the square root of
What? But then,
So it's when it says the
Yes, we
square
can-
root sign, it can only be a positive, but
yeah, because it's just like.
what about if it's square
You have
root?
to
Can you
square-
do square root of
Oh,
16
wait.
squared?
wait, if it's like
Is that
plus
possible?
minus 16, then it could be negative. So if you have to square root the x, then you just happen to square root the 16 to go with it, it's less than.
This is what's happening.
But the first one's only 4.
All right, watch it again, y'all. Watch. 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 First of all, what if I didn't even work the algebra problem? What if I said, I'm going to think in numbers I square to get 16? I would have to say 4 could go in the blank,
4 and
or a negative 4.
and then
okay? But all your life, and this has not changed, and it will not change. When you were little and you were starting to learn square roots in upper middle school maybe, or maybe even at the end of lower middle school, probably not that young. But if you saw 4 plus the square root of 9, you were correct in calling that 7. Square root of 9 is 3. What is 4 minus the square root of 9? 1. Okay? So I can write square root of 9. That's 3. If I want you to say negative 3, what am I going to have to do? I'm going to have to say I want the negative square root of 9. Then that makes you say negative 3. Wait, hang on just a minute. I'm going to write this really big. The square root of 100 is 10. So I think Margot is headed in this direction. If I put the square root on it, or the problem already has a square root on it, they've already decided what they want. They want the positive number. You can sit there all day long on your calculator and type in square root of numbers and it'll only give you the positive. Okay? So what's happening here, everybody put your hands down and just listen. Sometimes when we have a hand up waiting for a question, we're not really listening. If I square root both sides, the square root of 16 is 4. The square root of 16 is 4. But what did I just teach you the square root of x squared was? It's not x. You saw a picture of it. What is it? It's the absolute value of x. Gabby, it's always positive, right? I gave you your bonus points
So you
anyway.
have to wear,
Wait, hang on. What could I insert in this to make it true?
-4.
And
4.
I could put in 4 or -4, right? Most teachers, you'll probably never see that step from anybody but me, okay? But what's happening here is that you could put answers in here 4 and -4 to make this a true statement. I need to kind of leave this behind and revisit it because you don't totally need to understand this right now. What you do need to, by the way, your teachers are going to do this. Be ready after me, okay? They're going to go square root and they'll say x is plus or minus 4. Don't you run around thinking that they mean the square root of 16 is 4 and -4. Why are they saying plus or minus? It's because of this right here. There's a big difference in this question and this question. This one I haven't decided. I could square a positive or a negative. This one I've already decided. Did y'all see what I mean? Okay. Wow, that was deep. So I'll take a couple of questions or comments and then we'll move on.
that was like,
So
we don't need to know this now.
Correct. You can ask the people that are in AP Cal BC right now. They were in Algebra 2 and they were just like, one of them said, I just can't even do this today. Like, so, but it'll,
I know it now, but I was.
you don't have to, you just have to grasp this. The only reason, girls, wait, hang on, hands down for a minute. I'll let you put your hands, I'm going to ask questions in just a second. The reason I'm saying this is I don't want you to get confused in my class and in future classes when we run into problems that launched us into this big discussion. When you see something like this, or Sarah handled it correctly here, I said, what do you square to get 100? You can run into trouble when you square root both sides and type it into your calculator. You have to know if it's written like this. There's two answers. Sarah could either square 10 or -10. They're both correct. Okay, questions, comments. Yana?
So a square root though is always going to be positive.
Unless somebody puts a negative in front of it like this.
Okay, that is what I meant. But
That's a -4 right there on the left.
I have two questions.
All right.
Can you do like plus minus 16 like in the square root, or is that not really?
You can't have a negative under the square root.
Okay, but you can do it outside of it, like.
Not if I ask you this.
Well, the negative,
You mean I could write it in front of that, and then I would want either one. But if nothing's written in front of it, it's the positive.
Okay, and can I go to the bathroom?
Hurry. Okay. Margo, did you still have a question? Comment?
I just was, like you write it with like these lines around.
Those
it.
are absolute value.
You have to write it like that if you're unsquaring squared x.
If you really super understand what you're doing,
Oh,
but you don't have to.
Okay.
And so we'll grow into that. I'm just going to leave it behind right now. Don't worry about it all a whole lot. No. Well, what could happen on the quiz is this. I could say, let's say if this would happen on the quiz. This is why I got into the discussion. I might give you like an h of x, just like x squared plus 4. And I might say h of x is equal to 20. Then what would we all do, girls? We would go find h of x. And would we fill in 20 or set it equal to 20? Okay, then subtract 4. And what do you square to get 16? 4 or -4?
So for
Okay.
the quiz, you have to write both.
Right.
Negative, yes.
How many siblings do you have? So there's two of you? So do you want your mother just to, what's your sibling's name? Huh? Colin. So what if you're sitting there at Thanksgiving and your parents are like, I want you to meet my son or daughter? Son? I want you to meet my son Colin. I want you to meet my child Colin. You'd be going, what about me?
Low-key Evans.
All right. And Colin would feel the same way if it's Margot. In fact, if you've ever seen the Brady Bunch, Jan's like, Marsha. So anyway, I'll show you sometime. By the way, Jan Brady and I had the exact same dress. I was really pumped.
Really?
Yeah,
Well,
she
you have
copied
that
me.
dress. She copied you. You're the
copied
OG.
So anyway, okay, but that's not going to make or break your quiz. So let's move on. All right. Okay. So whenever we're here, we're thinking about Margot and Colin. All right. Who are your children? All right. 4 and -4. They're -4 is just as good as +4. Okay. All right. Now let's move on out of that. Let me remember where I am. All right. I think we were on. Good Lord. Oh, we were through at that page. Let's go to the third page.
Yeah.
All right. Before we do the third page, thank you for those of you that came by for help on this, because there was a lot of people in here that had questions. Join us in the Math Center, okay? And I loved how people did it right away. Who was it that even emailed me? Was it Margot? Margot shot me an email. I gave her an answer right back, and we were done with it. It probably took 13 seconds, so it wasn't a big, horrible thing. But now she's ready to move on. Susan, and I talked about it too, and I think this really hit home with her. If I said f of x, or what I made on my test, okay? On the first test, I made 100. On the second test, I made a 42. On the third test, I decided I should study, and I made an 88, okay? So do you see how, so tell me a story about this. Tell me a story about that. Jillian?
On your 7th test, you didn't really study because you were busy, and then you got 25.
Yeah. Do y'all see what's happening? Something bad happened because apparently I'm capable, and I just must not have studied or pay attention in class. Do you see how it really is telling you a story? It's a language. Some of y'all look confused when Jillian answered. Do y'all see how she did that? On the 7th test, I made a score of 25. Okay, Margot?
So like I did it, but like we're not supposed to answer with like numbers. We're supposed to like write out something.
Right, so let's go to number 4. Yes. So, because I've already given you numbers.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
what I wrote.
So, this person is jumping out of an airplane. All right, here's the airplane. Okay. Laura, is parachuting out of this airplane. So, here she goes. There's her parachute. Okay. So, she's jumping out of the plane. I guess J for jump. Raise your hand if you want to answer the first one. If you didn't know how to do this or you tried, which is all I ask, make sure you correct your paper. I'm going to let Margot get us started. Y'all ready for this one? Jay, you'll have these on test, maybe not on the next quiz. Go ahead.
Maybe. Well, she had just jumped out, so she was at time 0.
Yeah.
And so she was 13,500 feet above the ground. Like, right
Great.
before
So she was 13,500 feet above the ground before she jumped. How did Margot know that? Because J of 0, she must have still been in the plane. Nothing's even happened yet. Sarah?
I said at the start.
That's great. She was 13,500 feet above the ground, or at 13,500 feet. Maria, did you say something similar? Ella?
Wait, can you explain how to do the first part again?
What first part?
Like the one above?
Oh, the one I made up?
Yeah.
Do you know what this means? In this scenario?
It's 98 on the fourth test. Like, how do you find?
Oh, somebody's already calculated, just like
I
this.
thought you
They're already giving you.
Okay, I thought you were finding it. Sorry.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
So it's just like that. Somebody's giving you a scenario. They never gave you the equation. They just gave you their answer. Okay? But you have to be able to interpret it. All right, what did this mean? Raise your hand if you want to answer, Maria.
I said Laura was 10,570 in the air at 10 seconds.
All right, so Laura was 10,570 feet in the air after 10 seconds. So, do you see how it's a great language? It's very succinct, okay? It's very, what's the word I'm looking for? Efficient, okay? And she is falling, isn't she? Can you see after 10 seconds she's at 10,570 feet? All right, let me read you the next two. I would say on G of 20, let's see, Susan, do you want to read that one? G of 20, number 5. Listen up, girls. Hang on just a second.
Let G exceed the number of gallons of gas used by a car during.
Oh, I mean your answer.
Oh. Drove 20 miles and used 0.8 gallons.
So X is how far she drove, and the answer is how many gallons she used. Are y'all okay with that?
Yes.
All right, so then anybody want to read the second one? How far did she drive? Trying to get someone new. I don't know if I'm calling you lately, Daniela. Go ahead. Oh, Rebecca. Go ahead. Sorry.
She drove 130 miles and used 5.6 gallons.
Awesome. Okay, Yana, did you have a question about that?
I just had a question about number 4 about the J10 one. The second one. So I wrote that this is her distance, like that she passed after 10 seconds, but you're saying that it's her distance, like that she is in the air at 10 seconds.
J of X is the distance in feet.
Yeah, but
That means above the ground.
yeah, so she's above the ground, not that she covered.
Yes.
That's
And
just
they
what
would
has
have
to
had
go.
to say
Okay.
the distance. In fact, we could argue that point back and forth. Lord, I hope she didn't fall 10,570 feet in 10 seconds or she's in a lot of trouble. Her parachute's not working. So that's how do you see what I mean?
Yes.
But you would be justified in calling me over and saying, is this the distance she fell? Or is it the distance above the ground?
But we're going to answer it as the distance above the ground, right?
Yeah,
Because
she's
it's
going to be
long
hurt
term.
really bad. Okay?
Sorry.
All right, number 6, A is -1. B is -6. I'm sorry, yeah, -6. Y'all tell me if I'm right. G of 4, C is 24. D is 34.
Wait, well, let's see.
24.
Thank you. What's A? Yes. And B was -6.
I don't know where y'all are. Okay, I'm on D.
Yeah.
G of 6 was 34. All right, E, G of 3 was 19. And the last one would be 2. X is 2.
Yes.
Okay, so get used to if I give you the X or the Y. All right, now let me show you a couple of things real quickly. And I've already posted your homework, and it looks like I'm going to have to change it because I got way off in that deep discussion. But that only benefits you. Okay, so I'll change this in just a minute.
What's it gonna be?
I'm going to change it. Quiz on evaluating functions.
Okay.
What, girls? There's not, just hang on, and let me say this real clearly. I'm going to show you something new today in 5 minutes. It's easy to learn. And I'll have to change the Delta Math assignment to fit that. Some of y'all get confused when I give you 2 things to do. So your assignment is to do Delta Math, not the one that's posted right now. How will you know when I've really updated the homework? It'll say this. Yes. So you'll know when I go downstairs to work, I will do this in a few minutes. Right here, you'll see the word updated. You'll know it's good to go, okay? I'll tell you what to study for the quiz, how to study for the quiz, what will be on the quiz, and then I'll tell you, I'll have your Delta Math loaded by then. All right, so let me show you this last thing before we go. you've got to be thinking to yourself, gosh, this must be easy. As much time as Miss Lazari spends on things, if she's going to teach me something this fast. It's easy, okay? Some of you may or may not know it. I don't know if you've run into it or not. What we're looking at right now is called interval notation. Interval notation, okay? This is a new topic, 5 minutes, all right? How could you write here's a number line. All right, is that x is greater than or x is less than? You could just talk out loud the last few minutes. I mean, not to each other, to me. Is that x is greater than or less than?
Greater than.
It's going to the right, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you would write x is greater than 3, okay? Right now you should have the feeling of this is not new, by the way. I haven't done anything new yet. So just watch. All right? That is x is what then 2?
Less than.
Less than or equal
Less
to.
than or equal to.
Okay. If the dot is actually on the 2, you know it's included. This one is everything past 3. Okay? Some people go, well, why didn't you just say x is greater than 4? Aren't there a whole lot of numbers between 3 and 4? Tell me the first number you can think of that's greater than 3.
3.1.
3.1, 3.01, 3.0001. There's no way I can tell you the exact number right after 3. That's why we write it this way.
Right.
So you all should know, I hope by now, that a closed circle means included and an open circle means not included. Okay? So let's write this one. All right, so everybody be quiet. Do not answer out loud. Just think of what you think the answer is.
Sorry. I have a question.
Okay, I'm going to have to keep moving just a second. Okay. All right, don't say it. Anybody want to try it now? Okay, Bailey.
X is greater than -2 and is less than or equal to 3.
So Bailey and I could even write it like that, couldn't we? Do you see all of her answers fall between -2 and 3? Okay. So her X answers, she did not include the -2, great, and she did include the 3. All right, before I show you the new thing, does anybody have a question? Okay,
Clarifying open circle means not included.
which makes sense, right?
Okay.
That means it never got there.
Yeah.
If I color it in, that means, hello, I landed on 5.
Okay.
If I don't color it in, that means I'm at 4.9,
Right.
okay?
Yes.
That means I'm almost there, but I'm not there.
Okay.
All right, so here we go. Let me show it to you with Bailey's problem here. Y'all ready? There's also a different way to write it that you've probably never learned that I'm going to introduce to you today, okay? You have to know how to do this, not necessarily because you ever have to write it. You will have to write it for me, but also because you'll see it on standardized tests and in other classes. There's another way to write this that's more academic looking, okay? Here's the rules. And let me pause and just admit this. When I write some of these, it's going to look just like a point. And you're going to all of a sudden wonder, well, how am I going to know if it's a point or an interval? You're not ever going to wonder. In the context of the problem, you're going to know exactly what's happening. You're not going to ever find yourself sitting out, because I remember when my teacher showed it to me, I'm like, that's cool, that's easy, but how am I going to know if you're talking about an interval or a point? You'll always know in the context of the problem, okay?
Yeah.
All right, so here's the rules. A parentheses is like an open circle, and a bracket is a closed circle. A parentheses is an open circle, and a bracket is a closed circle. Let's go back to what Victoire said. It makes sense. Isn't this bracket, do you see how that's including the 3? It's like landed right on it, it's bigger. That's like a solid circle, and this is like an open circle. And you always write it from left to right. Okay? Let's try another one. Look at this one, girls. Look at this one. X is less than 2. It's going like this. Girls, you really want to watch this. You always do interval notation from left to right. Okay? Just like I did this one from -2 to 3. Where in the world is this one coming from? What's down there? It's going this way and it ends at 2 and doesn't go any further. What's back there? Ever heard of infinity?
Yeah, so that means
So that's -infinity to 2. Infinity is a sideways 8.
I know that one.
That
That's
goes.
what you put?
All right, Victoire, here I come. And I'm going to go until I get to 2. You see what I mean? So where am I coming from? I'm coming not from -10, not from -100. What's back there? It goes back forever. -infinity, and I stop at 2. Do I include the 2 or not? Closed circle, I should put a what? Closed circle, a bracket. Anybody know why I never, ever, ever put a bracket on infinity? We'd be millionaires probably if we knew what that was, wouldn't we? We can't capture infinity. We can't land on it because then somebody would add 1 to it and we'd have to go there. Y'all okay?
Yeah.
All right, so everybody tried this one. At the top, x is greater than 3. I'm going from 3 to where? I gotta keep going, okay? Good, girls. You're starting from left to right. What's the first thing you see on the left? Down here, it was -infinity to 2.
Yeah.
Up here, what's the first thing you see? 3 to
Infinity.
So 3 to infinity.
So bracket, comma, infinity.
No. It is on top.
You do bracket. And so you can't capture infinity.
You can't.
Oh!
That's why.
What would make me put a bracket? What would make me put a bracket?
It was colored in.
Yes. Okay, you'll have some delta math on interval notation. Wait to check your homework for about 10 minutes, and I'll put the word updated in there, okay?
Thank you.
Bye, girls. Yeah.
Oh,